I stopped cold at the kitchen threshold. I'm 67 years old. I heard her, my daughter-in-law, laughing. I donated your entire savings to charity, she chirped. You should thank me. Except that charity was just a bank account with her name on it. And those savings that was my entire life. My name is Evelyn Harper. I am 67 years old, a widow. And for the most part, I live a quiet life here in Willow Creek, Colorado. My Tuesday afternoon was exactly that quiet. I'd done the weekly shopping at the supermarket, driven home, unpacked the milk and the eggs, and only then realized I'd left my reading glasses on the checkout counter. A simple, forgetful moment. I drove the 10 minutes back, retrieved them, and returned home, parking in the gravel driveway. Instead of using the front door, I walked around to the back, through the garden Mark and I had planted. I eased the sticky back door open, trying not to make it groan. I was hoping to grab an ice water before Melissa, my daughter-in-law, noticed I'd been gone for a second time. But I heard her. She was in my kitchen, on the phone. Her voice was bright and loud. That special voice she used for her social media videos, full of breathless excitement. Oh my God. Brenda. I finally did it, Melissa was saying, and I heard the clink of a wine glass being set on the granite. I pulled off the humanitarian coup of the century. I froze, my hand still on the doorknob. I transferred everything. Melissa chirped. I've been laying the groundwork for months. But today I went for it. I officially, on her behalf, donated Evelyn's entire savings account to the Brightway Hearts Foundation. Wiped the main account clean. A buzzing started in my ears, hot and sharp. Savings account, my account, no. I'm serious. All of it. I could practically hear her smiling. The money from the sale of the old business, that pension supplement thing, even the last of her husband's life insurance payout. It is all donated. She said that word, donated, like it was a delicious secret. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. That money was not just money. It was 40 years of standing on our feet, of Mark coming home smelling of disinfectant and animal fur. It was my future. It was my safety net. The only one I had left. Melissa laughed again, a sound like glass breaking. Oh, she can't touch me. Remember when I had her meet that lawyer friend of mine? She signed the power of attorney over to Daniel, and I got her to sign a few, let's call them recurring donation pledges last month. She thought they were tax forms. If she tries to make a fuss, everyone in this town will just see a greedy, confused old woman trying to steal money back from sick children. It's perfect. I was hiding in my own home, behind the narrow wall separating the kitchen from the mudroom. My hand, the one not on the doorknob, found the wooden doorframe and gripped it. The wood felt rough against my skin. My knuckles were white. I was shaking so hard my teeth ached. Where is it? Melissa continued, answering her friend's question. Oh, the foundation is based out of state, of course. Much cleaner that way. And the board president. She paused for dramatic effect. You are looking at her, honey. Well, you're talking to her. My stomach dropped. A sickening lurch into icy emptiness. The house we're looking at in the Highlands is going to be amazing. This donation is the down payment and the renovation fund, all rolled into one. Plus, The PR I'm going to get from this, being the loving daughter-in-law who guided her aging mother-in-law to such a profound act of generosity, I'll be the new angel of social media. My legs felt weak. I leaned my forehead against the cool wall. Then came the final, killing blow. Daniel Melissa scoffed. Please. He knows. Well, he sort of knows. He knows I'm managing her finances. He probably thinks I just moved it into a different fund. But honestly, Brenda, he knows better than to ask questions. He'd rather pretend to be stupid than actually stand up to me. He's weak. But that's what makes him the perfect husband for this. He's my little cash cow's son, and he does what he's told. I pulled back before a sob could escape me. I backed away, step by silent step, my hand trailing along the wall. I did not run in. I did not scream. I did not confront her. In that moment, I understood with perfect, terrible clarity if I burst in there, hysterical. She would just film me. She would call Daniel, and I would be the crazy old woman, exactly as she'd planned. I had nothing but my word, and she had already poisoned the well. I slipped back out the door I'd just entered, pulling it shut with barely a click. I walked like a thief, fast and silent, back to my car. I dropped into the driver's seat and sat there, the keys heavy in my hand. I looked down at my own hands, resting on the steering wheel. They were wrinkled, dotted with age spots, the hands of a woman who had worked her whole life. And I realized, in the suffocating quiet of my own car, in my own driveway, that my daughter-in-law had just set my entire future on fire with a few clicks of a mouse. I just sat there in the car, the engine off. The silence was deafening, filling the space where my life used to be. That money. Melissa called it savings, as if it were some casual fund for a rainy day. It wasn't. It was 40 years of my life. 40 years of standing side by side with my husband, Mark. We built our little veterinary clinic from nothing. It never even had a fancy name. Just Harper Vet on a wooden sign Mark carved himself. We were the people you called at 10 at night when your dog ate a sock. The people kids brought shoeboxes to with stunned birds or stray kittens. We worked ourselves to the bone. We lived modestly, paid off the mortgage over 30 long years, and we poured every spare dollar into that retirement account. It was our promise to each other. One day, Evie, Mark would say, wiping sweat from his brow after a difficult carving, we'll sit on a porch and do absolutely nothing. That was the money from a lifetime of exhaustion and sweat. When Mark died from the lung cancer, it felt like the world had cracked open. Daniel, my son, my only boy, he was my anchor. He held me up. He handled the arrangements. He helped me sell the clinic to a younger veterinarian. You're done. Mum, he'd said, his hand on my shoulder. You've worked hard enough. It's time for you to rest, to finally enjoy the rest of your life. I cried with gratitude. He was such a good son. That image of him played in my mind now, as clear as a movie. Daniel, the good son, the one who drove me to my cardiology appointments, the one who came over to fix the rattling roof shingles last fall, the one who called, without fail, every Sunday evening. Just checking in? Mum, you need anything? How could that boy, my Daniel, be the same man Melissa described, the one who knows better than to ask questions, the one who would pretend to be stupid rather than confront his wife? I remembered the day he brought her home. Melissa. She was all bright teeth and perfect hair, a walking, talking social media page. Her entire life was curated, a stream of videos about conscious living and the spirit of giving and finding your compassion. She was an influencer. She'd said, I first met her at a local community fundraiser, a bake sale for the library. She'd found out I was coming and made a point to find me. She'd wrapped me in a hug that smelled like expensive perfume. Mom Evelyn, she'd cooed, just like that, on the very first day. I'm so thrilled to finally meet you. Daniel talks about you constantly. You are such an inspiration. I, a 67-year-old widow in a cardigan, an inspiration. I remember my eyes welling up. It had been so long since anyone had made me feel like I mattered, like I still had value. The questions started not long after. They were subtle at first, slipped into casual dinners. Mom Evelyn, how much do you think you saved up over all those years? You must have done really well. And have you thought about your will? It's so important to have a plan. Then, more recently, do you believe in the meaning of leaving a legacy, of end-of-life donations? I'd felt a prickle of discomfort. But Daniel was always there, laughing nervously, bridging the gap. Melissa's just passionate about this stuff. Mum, he'd say, squeezing my arm. She just cares about you leaving a positive mark, making sure your legacy is secure. He'd made me feel small for being suspicious. He'd made me feel like I was the one in the wrong, a miserly old woman clinging to her coins. Then came the meeting, months ago. A friend of Melissa's, a lawyer. He was young, slick, and spoke very fast. He said it was just to get my affairs in order. He'd recommended I sign a financial power of attorney, giving Daniel control. Just in case, God forbid, something happens to your health. It made sense. He was my son. And then Melissa had produced a few other papers. These are just expressing your humanitarian wishes. Mom, she'd said, her hand on mine. Just a formality, stating that you believe in the power of charity. It's for the lawyer's records. I was tired. My glasses weren't quite right that day. I trusted my son. I signed where they told me to sign. Sitting in that car, the engine cold. I finally understood. Every cup of coffee Melissa brought me, every harmless question about my finances, every gentle touch, and every saccharine sweet Mom Evelyn. Every time Daniel looked away and said, She just cares. Mom. It wasn't concern. It was prospecting. They hadn't been visiting a mother. They had been grooming a cash cow. And I had just sat there and mooed. I started the car. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I left my quiet street, turned onto the main road, and just kept going, merging into the sparse nighttime traffic. The lights of the suburbs blurred past my window, a gas station glowing under its fluorescent canopy, a 24-hour convenience store, a fast food drive-through. Each light felt like an accusation. My heart was a tight, aching knot in my chest. One half of me, the mother, was screaming in grief. My son, my Daniel. How could he? The other half was just fire. A cold, white-hot rage I hadn't felt since Mark died. I played the scene in my head. What if I drove back right now? What if I stormed into my own kitchen, threw open the door, and confronted her? I could see it. I could see myself screaming, my hands shaking, demanding my life back. And I could see Melissa. She wouldn't yell back. She would just smile. That sweet, pitying smile. She would pull out her phone, the camera already on. "Mom, Evelyn, are you okay?" she would ask, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You seem confused. You're scaring me." And Daniel. Daniel would rush in, and he wouldn't look at me. He would put his arm around his wife. "Mom, please, you're upset. Let's sit down. Melissa. Honey? She doesn't mean it?" I would be the crazy one, the unhinged, senile old woman. The shame of it made me shrink, right there in the driver's seat. She had me. She hadn't just stolen my money. She had stolen my credibility. That was her real weapon, not the law, not the papers I'd foolishly signed. It was her perfect, angelic image. It was the story she had already written, the loving daughter-in-law and the greedy old mother who wanted to take her generous donation back from charity. Who would ever believe me over her? I pulled off the highway and into the mostly empty parking lot of a late-night diner. The open sign glowed a faded red. I didn't go in. I just sat there under a flickering light pole, the engine ticking as it cooled. I turned on the car's small interior light. I fumbled in the glove compartment for a pen and grabbed a crumpled napkin from the console. I had to see it. I had to make it real. I uncapped the pen and started writing, the ink bleeding slightly on the cheap paper. Date of clinic sale. I wrote down the approximate amount. Date of POA. I remembered that day at the slick lawyer's office. The smell of leather and cologne. Date of humanitarian papers. The day Melissa had smiled so warmly, her hand on mine, telling me it was just a formality. Staring at those dates, the trembling in my hands didn't stop, but the tears did. The hot, messy grief was burning off, leaving something else behind, something cold and hard and sharp. She thought I was stupid. She thought I was a forgetful old woman, a prop for her show. She thought I was finished. I decided, right there in that parking lot, that I would not give her the fight she wanted. I would not give her the satisfaction of a hysterical breakdown. I would be silent. I would gather every receipt, every email, every single piece of proof. My phone was in my purse. My first instinct was to call Joanne Miller, my best friend for 30 years. We were neighbours before she moved across town. Joanne had been an accountant, sharp as a tack, no nonsense. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering over her name. I hesitated. A wave of profound shame washed over me. How could I say the words out loud? My son let his wife steal everything I have. What if I was wrong? What if I was paranoid? What if I had misunderstood? No. I heard Melissa's voice again, clear as a bell in my memory. Cash cow. He's weak. I pressed the call button. It rang once, twice. Evie, it's past 10. Is everything all right? Her voice, so normal, so warm, broke me. The dam I had been holding back just shattered. A sob tore out of my chest, ugly and raw. Evelyn, what is it? Are you hurt? Joanne, I wept. I couldn't get the air. She took it all. Melissa. She took all of Mark's money. She took everything. I told her. I stammered and cried and told her every single word I had heard from the mudroom. There was silence on the other end, but it wasn't a soft silence. It was the silence of pure, compressed fury. That bitch, Joanne said finally, her voice low and shaking. Evie, listen to me. This isn't just a family argument. This is elder financial abuse. This is a crime. You cannot be silent. You are not allowed to be silent. I don't know what to do. Joe? The papers? Forget the papers, she snapped. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm picking you up. We are going to the bank first. Then we are finding a real lawyer, not some slick boy Melissa hired. Do you hear me? Yes, I whispered. And Evelyn, she said, her voice softening, but only a little. You need to understand something right now, and it's the hardest part. I waited. The Daniel you raised, he's not the one in this equation. The man you're dealing with now is the one who sat by and let his wife gut his own mother. He is not your son right now. He is her accomplice. We hung up. I drove home. The streets empty. I let myself into the dark, empty house. I walked past the kitchen. I went to my bedroom and closed the door. I didn't sleep. Instead, I went to the back of my closet, to a drawer filled with old chargers and junk. I pulled out my old flip phone, the one I'd kept just in case. I found the charger and plugged it in. After an hour, its small screen lit up. I navigated the simple menu. I found the voice recorder function and pressed New Record. I held it up, my hand steady now. If you want to play the image game, I whispered to the empty room, the sound small but clear. I'll put you on a show, but it will be a show in court. Joanne was at my door at exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, her face set like concrete. She didn't hug me. She just put a firm hand on my arm and steered me to her car. We drove to the downtown branch, the one I'd used for 30 years, in mostly silence. We didn't wait in the line. I walked straight to the front desk and asked for Mr. Lawson. He's managed my accounts since before Mark even got sick. He came out of his office, all professional smiles. Evelyn, good to see you. What can we do for you? I need to see you in private. Arthur, I said, my voice flatter than I expected. The smile wavered. He led us into his glass-walled office and shut the door. What seems to be the trouble? He asked, folding his hands on his desk. I believe my accounts have been emptied without my full understanding, I said. Joanne added, we believe it's a case of elder financial abuse. Lawson's posture changed instantly. He became defensive, his face closing off. Evelyn, your son Daniel has a full power of attorney on file. He's authorized on all your accounts. Whatever transactions have been made, they were done with proper legal authority. I know, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out the crumpled napkin I'd written on. I hadn't brought the actual papers. I signed the power of attorney, and I signed some other papers for a charity, my daughter-in-law's charity. The fight went out of his eyes, replaced by a deep, weary concern. He knew me. He'd handled Mark's estate. He knew I wasn't a hysterical woman. He turned to his computer, his fingers clicking rapidly. Let's look at the recent activity, he said. He swiveled the monitor to face us and printed out the statements for the last 3 months. Even though I knew, seeing it was like a physical blow. 2 transactions. The first, dated 2 weeks ago. The second, dated just yesterday. Both were enormous, sums that represented decades of my life. Both were made out to the same entity. Charitable gift, Brightway Hearts Foundation. The available balance at the bottom of the page read $412.16. That, I whispered, pointing to the total, was everything. Brightway Hearts Foundation. Lawson mused, typing the name into another system. I'm not familiar with them. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, she's involved, I said. He clicked a few more times. A registration page popped up. Well, they're a legally registered 501c3 nonprofit, he said. frowning. Looks like they filed in Delaware, all above board on the surface. He scrolled down. Board of Directors. President Melissa Harper. Joanne let out a sharp, disgusted breath. Of course, she muttered. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the screen, the statements, the foundation's registration number, the contact email and phone. Arthur, Joanne said, all business. You need to freeze these transactions, claw the money back. It's fraud. Lawson shook his head, and I could see he genuinely felt bad. I can't. Joanne, legally, the bank is protected. The POA is valid. The transfers are labelled as gifts, which aligns with the recurring donation pledges Evelyn mentioned. He looked at me. On paper, this all looks like you fully intended to do it. If I freeze the accounts, Melissa, as the foundation's president, and Daniel as your POA could sue the bank and win. My hands are tied. Officially. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Unofficially, this stinks to high heaven. This isn't just a family dispute. This is a matter for the district attorney. And, he added, you should probably talk to the IRS. If she's using a non-profit as her personal piggy bank, that's tax fraud. That's money laundering. They tend to take that very seriously. He printed copies of everything for us, sliding them into a crisp bank envelope. He walked us to the door, his face grim. Evelyn, I am truly sorry. Good luck. We walked out into the bright morning sunshine, which felt like an insult. We got into Joanne's car, and I pointed down the street. The county courthouse. That's where the DA's office is, right? That's right, she said, putting the car in gear. As we pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed in my purse. A notification from our family group chat. I pulled it out, my fingers fumbling. It was a new message from Melissa. It wasn't a text. It was a link. A link to an article from the online version of our local Willow Creek Gazette. I clicked it. The headline read, Local philanthropic vision businesswoman Melissa Harper inspires mother-in-law to donate entire estate. And there, under the headline, was a picture. It was from Daniel's birthday party last summer. I was smiling, a half smile, looking off to the side. Melissa was beside me, beaming at the camera. The article was full of quotes from sources close to the family about how Melissa had gently guided me to find my true calling in generosity, how I had been liberated from the burden of wealth. I felt the blood drain from my face. She had already set the story. She had her camera, just as I'd imagined. But this was 1,000 times worse. She hadn't just filmed me. She had published the narrative to the whole town before I'd even known there was a fight. Now, if I went to the DA, if I said a word, I wasn't a victim. I was a confused old woman, senile, suffering from donor's remorse, trying to undo my last great act of kindness. Joanne looked over, saw my face. What is it? I just showed her the phone. That calculating which. Joanne breathed. I put the phone back in my purse. I looked at the courthouse looming at the end of the street. I felt like a prisoner walking the last mile. I felt the cold dread of the gallows. But then I looked at my own hands, clenched in my lap. No. I wasn't the one being led to the noose. I was the one holding it. Park as close as you can, Joe, I said. My legs feel a little weak. The district attorney's office was not like on television. It was beige, smelled of stale coffee and photocopiers, and I felt impossibly small. We didn't see the DA, We saw an assistant, a young, tired-looking woman named Rachel Knox. She listened to my entire story, from hearing Melissa in the kitchen to the article in the Gazette, without interrupting. Joanne sat beside me, a silent, furious statue. When I finished, Rachel leaned back in her squeaky chair. "Mrs. Harper," she said, "I am going to be blunt. This is a nightmare." "So you can't help," Joanne snapped. "I didn't say that," Rachel said, holding up a hand. "I said it's a nightmare because, legally, your daughter-in-law has been very smart. The POA is valid. The donation pledges you signed, even if you were misled, create a strong legal presumption that this was your intent. Melissa's article this morning. That was a deliberate move to frame any objection from you as cognitive decline or donor's remorse. She's building a public case." My stomach sank. "So that's it?" "No." Rachel leaned forward, and for the first time, I saw a spark in her eyes. "The donation looks voluntary. Our job is to prove it was coercive, deceptive, and fraudulent. We can't do that if you're the one on the attack. Right now, you are her confused mother-in-law. You need to be her sweet, generous mother-in-law who is just a little forgetful. She had a plan. Go home. Act like you know nothing. Continue your normal routine with Daniel and Melissa. And," she paused, "get that old phone you mentioned. Keep it on you. Keep it recording. We need her to say it again. We need her to brag. We need her to explain, in her own words, how the charity works. Can you do that?" I thought of my empty bank account. I thought of Mark. "Yes," I said. That night, they were scheduled to come for dinner. My regular Sunday roast. I made it just like always. But this time, my old flip phone was tucked into the pocket of my wool cardigan, the voice recorder running. My hand kept brushing against it. A cold, hard secret. They arrived. All smiles. Daniel carried a bottle of wine. Melissa, a bouquet of flowers, which she probably bought with my money. "Mom, Evelyn. You shouldn't have cooked," she sang, kissing the air near my cheek. We sat at the table, the same table Mark and I bought at a flea market 30 years ago. I fumbled with the serving spoons, my hands shaking just enough to be plausible. "Oh, Mom, did you see?" Melissa beamed, pulling out her smartphone. She held it right in my face, angled so Daniel could see it too. "The article went live. You're famous." I squinted at the screen, at my own stolen face. "My goodness." Melissa pushed, her voice thick with fake emotion. "You've already changed so many lives. Just think of all those children. Are you having any regrets?" The question hung in the air, a baited hook. I looked down at my plate. I let myself tremble. "Oh, no, dear," I whispered. It's not regret. It's such a big adjustment. Waking up and not having my savings. It feels so sudden." Daniel flinched, clearing his throat. "Mum, we talked about this. Remember, you've been saying for a year you wanted to leave a legacy. You decided this." He was convincing himself. Melissa put her hand on his, a gesture of pure public support. "And once you've made a pledge like that, Mom, it's a binding commitment. The law protects that kind of noble decision. You can't just take it back from the children." The threat was unmistakable, wrapped in a pink bow. I took a shaky sip of water, playing my part. "Oh, I know, dear. I wouldn't dream of it. I'm so proud of you." Melissa. I just wish I understood more. How exactly does the foundation work? All that money, it's a big responsibility. I saw a flicker of annoyance in her eyes, but it was replaced by her favorite emotion, hubris. Well, it's very complicated. Mum, she said, patting my hand condescendingly. Do you get a salary? Dear, I asked, as if I didn't know the answer. For all your hard work, Melissa laughed, a light, airy sound. Oh, of course, a president's stipend. It's standard. We have to pay for the best to get the best results. Most of the money, initially, has to go into operations. You know, marketing, web design, travel, organizing events. You have to spend money to raise money. Mom Evelyn, that's just business. And the board. Are they good people? The best, she said. My old sorority sister is the treasurer, and a few of Daniel's college friends are on it, too. Everyone is completely dedicated to the cause. And the children? I asked, my voice small. The ones in the pictures on the website. Where are they? She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, those are just stock photos. Mom, for illustrative purposes, we're still in the infrastructure phase. You'll see. It's all about the long-term vision. Before they left, Melissa had one more brilliant idea. She clapped her hands together. Daniel, I know what we have to do. We need to throw a gala, a real one, to honor you. Mum. We'll call it the Evelyn Harper Legacy Ball. We'll invite the whole town, the press. It will be the foundation's official launch. It will cement your story forever. Daniel looked relieved. A party. Something he could understand. I forced tears into my eyes. Oh, Melissa. A party. For me. That's so much. I don't know what to say. You just say yes, Mom, she said, hugging me. When the front door finally clicked shut, I leaned against it for a long, silent minute. Then, I pulled the flip phone from my pocket. My hand was shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. I sat at my kitchen table and listened to the entire recording. Over 1 hour of lies, condescension, and boasts. I understood. The gala wasn't a party to honor me. It was a trap, meant to be the final nail in my coffin, cementing me as the smiling, senile donor. But she was wrong. It wasn't my trap. It was hers. The recording from that dinner changed everything. I brought the small phone to Rachel Knox, and she listened to the entire agonizing hour with a grim, tight mouth. This is it. Evelyn? She said. Her bragging about operations and stock photos. That's she's admitting to misuse of charitable funds. She picked up her desk phone. I'm looping in an associate. This has just moved beyond my pay grade. The associate was not a lawyer. His name was Lucas Rivera, an investigator from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. He was a quiet man who looked more like a history professor than a federal agent, with tired eyes that seemed to have seen every kind of lie. He didn't shake my hand. He just nodded as Rachel introduced us. The Brightway Hearts Foundation, he said, opening a thin folder on his lap. We've been flagging them for irregular tax deductions for about 6 months. The money comes in as pledges from large estates, but the money going out doesn't look like charity. It looks like consulting fees, travel stipends, and real estate scouting. He slid a few redacted printouts across the desk. You're not the first, Mrs. Harper. You're just the first one who hasn't gone silent. He showed me 3 other cases, anonymous reports from across the state, even one in Arizona. An 80-year-old man who donated his classic car collection. A 72-year-old widow who pledged her stock portfolio. In every case, a family member was involved. And in every case, when an initial complaint was filed, it was withdrawn a week later. The files were all stamped, "Case closed." They get scared, Lucas said softly. They get threatened. Or worse. They realize that to prosecute the shark, they have to prosecute their own children. Rachel arranged for me to meet one of them. His name was Harold Green, a 74-year-old retired mailman. I met him and Joanne at a small coffee shop. He was a small man, his hands trembling as he held his cup. He had lost his house, not his savings, his house. My daughter, Cheryl, and her new husband. They got involved with Melissa at some church group. Harold told me, his voice barely a whisper. They started talking about unburdening me, helping me transition to a simpler life. He said Melissa and his son-in-law had convinced him to donate his paid-off house to the Brightway Hearts Foundation. In exchange, the foundation would allow him to live there while they managed his asset. They had a little ceremony, he said, staring into his coffee. Right on my front lawn, Melissa was there. She gave my daughter a microphone. Cheryl. She stood there and talked about my great act of community spirit. Gave a whole speech on letting go of material possessions. And I just stood there. I wanted to scream, "You're stealing my house." But the neighbors were all there, applauding. And my daughter. She looked so proud. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Joanne asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Harold looked at her, his eyes wet. "And say what, that my only daughter is a thief, that she and her husband left me in a 1-bedroom rental so they could manage my legacy, I'd lose her forever. I'd be the talk of the town. Sometimes it's just easier to let it be gone." I looked at Harold Green, and I saw my own future. I saw the version of me who kept quiet, the version who let Daniel and Melissa throw their gala and paint me as their senile, smiling mascot. The shame of it, the silence, was its own kind of prison. Lucas has a theory, I told Joanne later that night. He thinks Brightway isn't just Melissa. He thinks it's a model, a franchise. Find a greedy, ambitious person like Melissa. Find a family with an elderly relative who has assets, and then use the child, the son, the daughter, as the weapon. You use love and guilt and moral language to do the dirty work. It's cleaner than a gun. I felt a wave of pure nausea. I could see Melissa in a courtroom, her eyes wide and innocent, crying on the stand. "We were only trying to help them," she would say. "We just wanted to help our parents find peace, to leave a beautiful, humanitarian legacy." It was a perfect, disgusting defense. Joanne, practical as ever, pointed at the gala invitation, which had arrived in my mail that day, glossy and white. "Well, if it's a network, they'll all be there. If she's honoring you, she'll invite her other successes. This gala is the perfect place. You get the press, the investigators, and maybe even Mr. Green in the same room. You spring the trap in public." That night, I started writing. I took out a yellow legal pad, and I wrote down everything. 40 years of the clinic, the exact amount from the sale, the dates I'd lent Daniel money for his first car, for his college tuition, for his down payment, all loans he'd forgotten to repay. I wasn't just writing it for Rachel or Lucas. I was writing it for me. I needed to see, in black and white, just how much I had already given. Only one question remained, and it was the one I couldn't write down. It was the one that kept me awake, staring at the ceiling. Daniel. Was my son a willing accomplice, a greedy co-conspirator who saw me as a cash cow? Or was he just weak? Was he, in his own way, another one of Melissa's victims, brainwashed by her ambition? And I realized, with a cold, sinking feeling, that I was about to find out, and I wasn't sure which answer would be worse. My kitchen table, where I used to roll out pie crusts with Daniel, was now a war room. Rachel, Lucas, and Joanne were gathered around it, and I had a fresh pot of coffee brewing that none of us were drinking. Unfolded in the centre was a floor plan of the Grand Hotel ballroom, the site Melissa had chosen for her Evelyn Harper Legacy Ball. "She's put the main podium here," Lucas said, tapping a red pen on a small rectangle. "It's elevated. Good sightlines. Bad for her. She'll feel powerful. People feel powerful. They get chatty. Especially Melissa," Joanne muttered. "Exactly." Lucas continued. "I'll have a tech team sweep the venue an hour before, posing as Hotel AV. We'll plant a high-sensitivity directional mic under the lectern, separate from the main sound system. It'll catch everything she says to her aides, to Daniel, even what she breathes." Rachel took over. "I've got a contact at the local news affiliate, a real investigative reporter, not a lifestyle fluff person. She's been looking for a reason to investigate local non-profit fraud. She will be attending as a guest, covering the town's most inspiring new charity event." "What's my part?" I asked. "You," Rachel said, looking at me, "are the nervous, slightly confused, and deeply proud mother. Starting now, I need you to flood her with just enough insecurity to make her over-explain herself." So I did. That afternoon, I sent Melissa an email from my old computer. I wrote that I was a little worried about the gala, that it felt so big. I asked her, just to put my old mind at ease, if I could see the foundation's legal papers and some kind of financial report. I told her I just wanted to feel prepared if any of the important guests asked me questions. It was a performance of calculated incompetence. Melissa, consumed by her own brilliance and my supposed stupidity, took the bait so hard she nearly ripped the rod from my hands. She called me, her voice dripping with condescending patience. "Oh, Mom Evelyn, you don't need to worry your pretty head about any of that. The actual legal documents are hundreds of pages long. It's all just lawyer speak. It would just confuse you." "Oh," I said, my voice trembling just right. "It's just, I feel so silly not knowing." "Tell you what," she said, letting out an exasperated sigh. "I have a simple financial summary we prepared for donors. I'll email it to you. It's got all the pretty charts. Will that make you feel better?" "Oh, yes, dear," I said. "Thank you so much." When the email arrived, I forwarded it directly to Lucas. "And we've got her," he said on the phone, less than an hour later. "The numbers she's put in this summary, the percentage she claims goes to charitable programs versus operations, they are the exact opposite of what she filed with the IRS. This is it. This is the smoking gun. This is willful, intentional fraud. She just handed you a loaded confession." The rest of the plan fell into place like tumblers in a lock. Melissa, in her planning emails to me, boasted that she would have a beautiful slideshow during her speech, a journey of compassion. That's when she'll use Harold's picture, Rachel said, her voice hard. And the others. She'll be committing public misrepresentation and wire fraud in front of a ballroom full of witnesses. I'll be in the back row, noting every single slide. Joanne focused on my speech. I was the guest of honor, after all. You write 2 speeches. Evie, she instructed. Speech A is the one you start. It's sweet. It's emotional. It's grateful. You thank your wonderful son and your visionary daughter-in-law. You play their game. And speech B, I asked. Speech B, Joanne said, is the truth. It's the legal pad you wrote. You only give speech B when we have the safe condition. The safe condition was our trigger. It meant 2 things had to happen. 1, Lucas had to get a text from his team at the IRS confirming that the official order to freeze the foundation's assets was signed and being executed. 2, Rachel had to have her plainclothes officers, posing as hotel security and guests, in position, covering every exit, including the service doors. Once that's set, Rachel said, Lucas will give a signal from his table, a simple nod. Then, Mrs. Harper, you can stop acting. I spent the next 3 days practicing in front of my bathroom mirror. I'd start, my voice wavering. Oh, I'm just so overwhelmed. I'd practice the grateful, teary-eyed smile. Then, I'd stop. I'd let the smile drop. I'd stand up straight, pull my shoulders back, and my voice would drop, cold and clear. Now, I'd like to talk about the operations budget. I was rehearsing this transition, this shift from Evelyn the victim to Evelyn the witness. When my phone buzzed, it was a text message from Daniel. Mum, I know you've been acting weird about the money. Please, I'm begging you. Just be normal tomorrow night. Melissa has worked so hard on this. This is the biggest night of her life. Please, don't ruin this for us. I read the message. I read it again and again. I felt the last, flickering ember of maternal hope. The weak, stupid part of me that wondered if he was just confused. Just go out. He wasn't confused. He was a coward. He was her accomplice. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, at the cold-eyed old woman staring back. Ruin it, I whispered to the empty room. Oh, honey, I'm going to do so much more than that. The Grand Hotel ballroom was suffocating. It glittered. 1,000 points of light reflecting off crystal glasses and polished silverware. It was a beautiful, expensive lie. High above the stage, a massive banner hung, and on it was my face, that same stolen, smiling picture from the newspaper. The text underneath read, Evelyn Harper, a woman who gave her lifetime to her community. Melissa, in a stunning, floor-length white gown that made her look like a bride or a saint, glided over to me as I stood by the entrance. The flashes from the hired photographers were blinding. She wrapped me in a tight, cold hug. I've made you a legend, Mom Evelyn. She whispered into my ear, her smile never leaving her face. You really should be thanking me. Daniel appeared at my other side, looking strained in his tuxedo. He leaned in, his eyes darting around the room nervously. Mum, he said, his voice low and desperate. You look nice. Please, just don't say anything difficult on stage. Let everyone be inspired. For me. He squeezed my arm. a gesture that was meant to be loving but felt like a warning. The room was packed. Small-time donors, local business owners, a few town council members Melissa had schmoozed, and somewhere, scattered in the crowd, was Rachel's reporter, Mr. Lawson from the bank, and a few plainclothes officers. The air was thick with perfume, the buzz of meaningless conversation, and the sound of a string quartet. Melissa was in her element, floating from table to table, accepting praise, her laughter ringing out. This was her coronation. She took the stage to thunderous applause. She was a natural, her voice resonant, emotional, and perfectly rehearsed. She told the story. Her story. How she had found her beloved mother-in-law, Evelyn, struggling. Burdened by the weight of a lifetime of assets. She described, in heartbreaking detail, how she had gently guided me, helping me to find my true, enlightened self and achieve a legacy of pure, selfless giving. She spoke of the children, the thousands of desperate faces who would be saved by my profound act. Evelyn Harper didn't just want to keep her money, Melissa concluded, her voice thick with tears. She wanted to liberate herself. She decided to give it all, every last cent, to those in need. The room erupted. People were on their feet, dabbing their eyes. It was disgusting. I was standing in the wings, just off stage, with Joanne, Lucas, and Rachel, who had slipped back from her seat. We watched the performance. My stomach was in knots. "She's good," Lucas murmured, unimpressed. "But she's late." "It's not time yet," Rachel said, checking her watch. As Melissa started to wind down, basking in the applause, Lucas's phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out, read the screen, and his entire demeanor changed. He looked up at Rachel, then at me, and gave a single, sharp nod. The IRS order was live. The accounts were being frozen. The trap was set. And now, Melissa beamed, her hand outstretched to me. The woman of the hour, our inspiration. My mother, Evelyn Harper. The spotlight hit me. I walked out, my legs feeling like they were moving through wet cement. I held my note cards, speech A, in my trembling hand. I reached the podium. I gripped its sides. "Thank you," I began, my voice breathy and weak, just as I'd practiced. "Thank you all for coming. I'm so overwhelmed." I looked out at the faces. When I was a young woman, my husband, Mark, and we worked so hard. I was about to thank Daniel and Melissa, just as planned, when a movement caught my eye. Melissa was suddenly beside me at the podium, smiling at the crowd, as if this was part of the show. "Mom is just so emotional," she said into the mic, with a tinkling little laugh. Then she turned to me, her smile gone, replaced by a look of cold steel. She slipped a folded piece of paper, a script, onto the lectern in front of me. She leaned in, her lips brushing my ear, the whisper for me, and the hidden mic alone. "You read this," she hissed, the venom unmistakable. "Exactly this. Don't ad-lib. We have 2 therapists from the County Mental Health Board sitting right at table 3. They are here to provide an evaluation of your cognitive state. If you deviate, they will note it. Do you understand me?" It was a checkmate, a brilliant, vicious, last-second move. I looked at the script. I looked at her. I could feel Daniel's panicked stare from the front row. I could feel Lucas and Rachel holding their breath in the wings. I fumbled, just as a confused old woman would. I picked up the script she'd given me. I unfolded it. I squinted at it. Then, I folded it back up, very neatly, and I tucked it into the pocket of my cardigan. I turned my head and looked directly at Melissa, who was still standing 2 feet away, her smile frozen in place. I leaned into the microphone. I abandoned speech A. I abandoned speech B. "Before I read that," I said, my voice suddenly loud and clear in the silent room, "I just have a simple question for my daughter-in-law, the president of this wonderful foundation." I didn't look at the audience. I looked only at her. "Melissa, dear," I said, "perhaps you could tell us all. What exact percentage of this foundation's money goes to marketing and operations? And what percentage actually goes to the children you're talking about?" A ripple of confused murmuring started in the crowd. Melissa's smile didn't just freeze, it shattered. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the amplifiers. My question hung in the air. A poisoned dart. Before Melissa could invent a response, I reached back into my pocket. Not for her script, for my own. "Since you seem to be having trouble with the math, Melissa, let me help," I said. My voice was amplified, clear and strong, cutting through the entire ballroom. I pulled out the folded papers Lucas had given me. "This is a copy of the bank statement showing the transfer. This is the Brightway Hearts Foundation's legal registration. And this is the official tax filing submitted to the IRS." I held them up. "According to these public documents, this foundation allocates just under 92% of its revenue to operational costs, marketing, and executive compensation. 92%. That leaves 8% for the— what was it you called them? The desperate faces." "That's a lie, she's confused," Melissa shrieked, her mask of serenity shattering. She lunged at me, grabbing for the microphone, for the papers. But she didn't reach me. A hand shot out and clamped down on her wrist. It was Daniel. His face was a sheet of white. "Melissa, stop," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Let her finish." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. It was the first time, in their entire marriage, I had ever seen him fail to immediately protect her. I didn't look at her. I looked at my son. "Thank you, Daniel," I said, and my voice was iron. "Since you are finally listening, perhaps you can answer. Did you know these numbers when you signed the authorization? Did you know you were giving your wife a 6-figure salary taken directly from my life savings? Or did she just tell you about the new house, the one you're building with the swimming pool?" He flinched, as if I had slapped him. He looked from my face to the papers in my hand. He hadn't seen them. I knew it in that instant. He had been a willing fool, but a fool nonetheless. He hadn't known the details, only the goal. Melissa saw him waver, and she pivoted with the speed of a predator. The rage vanished, replaced instantly by a storm of tears. She ripped her arm out of his grasp and turned to the crowd, sobbing. "I don't understand," she wailed, a perfect picture of wounded innocence. "Evelyn, why are you doing this? I only did what you asked me to do. You told me at the lawyer's. You said you wanted to donate everything you begged me to help you." She was playing her final card, the confused, vindictive old woman. The room erupted in murmurs. Some people, I saw, were looking at her with pity. This poor, kind wife being attacked. But others were looking at the giant projection screen above the stage. Lucas, in a moment of sheer genius, had fed the technicians the file. On one side, the pretty chart Melissa had sent me, showing a huge slice for charity. On the other side, the pie chart from the actual IRS filing, with its 92% operations slice. The lie was 20 feet tall. Daniel was trapped. He looked at the acrine, then at his weeping wife, then back at the screen. I could see the awful calculation in his eyes. He was remembering. He was remembering all those pillow talk conversations. Melissa's soft voice in the dark, whispering about liberating me from the burden of money. He was realizing, in front of 200 people, that it was never about my legacy. It was only ever about my assets. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just raised my voice one more time. If I were the only one, I said, cutting through her sobs. If they had only stolen from me, perhaps I would have stayed silent. Perhaps I would have let them have the money, just to save my son the public shame. I looked past the stage, into the crowd, and pointed. But I am not the only one. Ask him. Ask Mr. Harold Green, there in the third row. Ask him to tell you about the house he donated to this wonderful charity. The reporter's camera flash was immediate. The spotlight operator, confused, swung the beam into the audience, landing on Harold. He stood up, his small body trembling, his face pale with terror. But he stood. He raised a shaking hand. "It's true," he stammered, his voice barely audible. They took my house." The reporter's camera was on him instantly, the microphone swinging in his direction. Daniel saw it all. He looked at me. His mother, standing on the stage with the evidence. He looked at Harold Green, a ghost of his own mother's future. He looked at Mr. Lawson, our bank manager, who was standing at his table, his face a mask of cold fury. And then, finally, Daniel looked at his wife, who was still screaming. "She's lying. They're all lying. Daniel, tell them they're lying." He had to choose the beautiful, comforting lie his wife had built, or the ugly, devastating truth his mother had just revealed. His entire life, and hers, balanced on that single, silent second. The silence in the ballroom was total. Daniel's hand, holding the microphone he had taken from his wife, was shaking violently. His voice cracked. He swallowed, trying again. "I signed the power of attorney. I agreed to the transfer. I thought we were helping her." He looked desperately at me, his eyes pleading. "But I didn't know this. I didn't know the structure. I didn't know it was dirty. I didn't know about the 92%. Mum, I swear I didn't." Before I could answer, a sharp voice cut through the silence. Rachel Knox was walking up the main aisle, her heels clicking decisively on the floor. She stepped up onto the low stage, took the microphone from Daniel's numb hand, and addressed the stunned crowd. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Knox. I am an assistant district attorney. The Brightway Hearts Foundation is officially under criminal investigation for financial fraud. We ask that everyone please remain calm and stay in your seats." Melissa didn't stay calm. Her mask of sanity was gone. She was just a cornered animal. She looked at Daniel, at me, at the main doors, and then she bolted. She ran, not for the grand entrance, but for the staff-only door to the side, near the kitchens. She didn't make it 5 feet. A man in a hotel security uniform, a man I'd never seen before, stepped directly into her path. He was one of Rachel's plainclothes officers. He grabbed her arm. Melissa shrieked and tried to fight, but he was fast, twisting her arm behind her back. The sharp, metallic click of handcuffs snapping shut echoed through the microphones. The social media saint, in her angelic white dress, was arrested. The reporter's camera flashed, a strobe light capturing the pure, ugly fury on Melissa's face. She twisted, looking over her shoulder, her eyes locking on me. "You!" she screamed, the sound ripping from her throat. "You did this. You think you've won. You old bitch. You just destroyed your own son." He signed everything. Every single transfer authorization, I'll tell them. I'll tell them he was in on all of it. She was still trying to drag him down with her. I looked away from her. At Daniel. He was standing frozen, a statue, watching his wife be dragged away. He looked hollow. I turned back to the microphone, my voice steady. "I can't save you from your choices. Daniel?" I said, loud enough for him and everyone else to hear. "But I can stop you, and your wife, from robbing any more people like me, or like Mr. Harold." After that, it was chaos and procedure. Melissa was put in a police car, still screaming that she was innocent, that this was just the DA trying to make a name for herself. Daniel wasn't cuffed. He was just invited. An officer quietly escorted him to a different car for a separate interview. He knew. I could see it, that there was no one left to hide behind. Joanne drove me to the courthouse. We sat on a hard, polished wooden bench under fluorescent lights that buzzed. We just sat, in silence, for what felt like hours. Finally, Rachel came out. She looked exhausted. "Evelyn," she said, her voice soft. "It's done. For tonight. The IRS and the bank have frozen every single asset tied to the Brightway Hearts Foundation. It's going to be a long process. But we're going to get almost all of your money back." She told me that in the interview room. Lucas had shown Daniel the files. Not just my file, but Harold's. And the files of 3 other elderly people Melissa was already grooming, faced with the truth of what he had enabled, and what his wife was planning to do next. My son, he finally chose to tell the truth. He handed over every email, every text, every private financial statement. He admitted everything. I just nodded. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse in relief. I just felt empty and still. I looked down the long, sterile hallway, through the small wire glass window in a door, and I could see the silhouette of my son sitting at a table. I watched his shadow for a moment. Then I turned away. I wasn't waiting for a hug. I wasn't waiting for an apology. Tonight, the only thing I won back was the right to no longer be seen as an easy, senile old woman to be led. And for me, that's enough to start the rest of my life, even if that rest might not have my son in it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary and like this video. If this story touched you, please hit that hype button so more people can hear it.